Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another Sprue Tour, and it's this little thing, the Airfix Spitfire TR.9. When this was released, when this was announced in the sort of new tool 2025, what's coming in the new year, it caused a bit of a stir, and I'm not surprised. A lot of people went, why are they doing that? I mean, okay, I know it's a Spitfire, but it's a weird Spitfire, the two-seater. But actually, I think it's a bit genius. There hasn't been a mainstream tooled Spitfire TR.9 ever. I'm sure there's a few sort of obscure conversion sets out there. And initially I went, yeah, not my thing. However, very quickly, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, actually, I think that's really quite cool. And I'm going to go and get one. And here it is. I have one. I'm going to be building this on the channel as soon as the few bits of aftermarket that I've ordered come. So I've ordered some resin exhausts. I've ordered some seat belts. And I've ordered a canopy mast set. And yeah, so as soon as that clears customs and gets here, this is going straight on the bench. Just before we go to the bench, I'll just mention the rivets. Okay, it's sparked a lot of conversation, shall we say. Now, I much prefer riveted airframes because it means I don't have to do it myself. Frankly, I think there's that we could go down the rabbit hole of, oh, it's not realistic and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, but neither is the thickness of the perspex, the canopies. You know, neither are the thickness of the undercarriage doors. I'm not going to open the can of worms about panel lines. At the end of the day, you need to kind of, I think, fool the eye. So with that kind of surface detail and the painting and weathering effects to convince the sort of the brain that you're actually looking at the miniature version of the real thing. That's why I like panel lines. Rivets, I think, create noise, if you like, in the image. Yes, they're vastly overscale. And yes, there were flush riveted, there were raised rivets. You know, they're not dimples and holes in the aeroplane. But recessed rivets, it's the best way to, I think, reproduce in these small scales rivets. Now you will see when I open the model and show you the plastic that the rivets look overdone. I will say that under the harsh lighting under the camera does exaggerate them. When I've seen other people's reviews before my kit arrived, I was like, oh, to be honest, I think that looks a little bit overdone. I wasn't that worried about it because, you know, Airfix traditionally don't do rivets, and they've only just started doing riveted airframes. You know, the Gannet leaps out, absolutely beautiful. However, in the flesh, with the naked eye, they do appear a lot more restrained than they do under the camera. So just bear that in mind when having a look at the rivets. I'm sure this will kick off a discussion about rivets, panel lines, scale detail, and stuff in the comments. Be good to get your opinion. My opinion is I love rivets. Long may they continue, because it means I don't have to add them. There we are. Right, enough waffle. Let's go and open the box. We'll nip over to the bench and we'll see what's in there. Here we are at the bench, and as is usual with Airfix, look at that beautiful 3D rendered or digital or computer generated, whatever you want to call it, box art. Absolutely beautiful. Over the Emerald Isle. Just stunning, that. Some warnings and blah. That's always a good sign to see on a box, is it not? Alpha 05143 is your box number. This is always weird. I don't know why they always print this upside down on this side. 2 decal options, some gouge, 2 flying hours. You could always donate those to Models for Heroes if you're not going to use them yourself. Right, there we are. That is a very glossy box. Apologies for that if it's freaking your screen out. Now, I've already had a look inside. I couldn't resist it as soon as it arrived. SOP Airfix instructions, go through those in a mo. Here are those cardograph decals, more of that in a mo. Just going to leave all that in the box. We'll put that out of shot. The gouge about the aeroplane. Airfix started this back in the day, and very quickly it became industry standard. Just in case you were not aware, it's a nice little fact about Airfix. Now, no sprue map, which is fine. Obviously, it all starts in the cockpit. Now, what you do get with Airfix these days is these little mould pips. You just cut them off, dead easy. I recommend sanding them flush as well, just in case. Obviously, that's the reverse of the lower cockpit set. And then you're just building up the 2 cockpits in this case. More of these moulding pip things here. Rudder pedals, you could easily just add some straps over the top of that. The bulkheads going in, I'm assuming these are moulded solid, so drilling out these holes is certainly for me de rigueur. But, you know, all Spitfire kits have them flushed over pretty much. And you just go in and build up the 2 cockpits, which is a bit odd for a Spitfire, is it not? Seat, like the fact that it's all separate there, and some padding moulded on the drawing. We'll have a look at that part in a moment. So it all builds up on these sort of lower side panels. And then once that's complete, you make a little sandwich. Throttle quadrant looks like here. Is that? No, that's on the right hand side. So that's not the throttle. Don't know what that is. Maybe that's the gear for the back seat. Yeah, 2-part control column, which I like. And bit of detail going on down there. It's going to be difficult to see. And this is unusual. This must be a feature of the 2-seater Spitfire, that you get these sort of shelving units either side of the sort of cockpit sill things, which is interesting. Other control column, other seat. Now you'll notice there's no seat harness. I have ordered a photo etch seat harness. As with most Spitfire kits in 48th, this seat mounting thing here is solid. You could probably drill some holes out. I tend to do that in my Spitfire kits, so I'll be doing it in this one as well. If I do the canopy open, I might be doing my canopy closed. If I'm doing it closed, I shall probably leave it. Instrument decal going on over the top. We'll have a look at that in a moment. There is your throttle quadrant and your undercarriage lever for the front. 2 pilots. One with his hand on the control column and throttle, stick and throttle. That's this guy who's armless, and then the arms are clearly separate, so you can put it on the controls. And then the instructor or the passenger in the back, hands on that. Right, this is for the closed canopy option. There is a jig supplied, and you're going to have to remove this material here. If you're going to go for the open canopy option, you can do that straight from the box. But if you want to lower the separate doors, the side doors, you're going to have to cut those and then mount them in the open position. At the moment, I'm thinking that I might do mine canopy closed, purely because just to preserve those lines, because obviously the whole point of doing this kit is the second cockpit. That's what makes it unique. And I think if that's open, it's going to take away from the look of it. I don't know yet. I'll probably change my mind 17 times before I get round to building it. But you do have to make the decision fairly early, because if you're going to do it closed, surgery required. Interesting that these are painted red as per the post-war ones. Whether the Irish one was red, even though yes it was post-war, I don't know. The cockpit gubbins get sandwiched in the cockpit halves. I very much doubt you're going to see this, but it's a nice detail anyway. This will be the compressed air tanks. Separate cowling. I like that idea. That means they can get the shape correctly, and you don't have to worry about restoring all this beautiful rivet detail and fastener detail around the seam. So that's a nice touch. Two-piece elevators going on, and then this is sort of fairly standard for a Spitfire kit. Elevators, the tailplanes go on, elevators go on, and then it's locked in with this little piece at the back. In the Edward kit, this is two pieces, which is really fiddly, so I'm really glad that's a single piece. I always struggle with that. And the pointed rudder going on. I bet these radiator details are really nicely moulded, and you can see that the mounting attachment points are handed, so you're not going to get that wrong. There's no actuators or anything like that, so if you wanted the radiator flap open, then you might want to just scratch build a little lever or just steal it from a spare Edward kit. Now this is quite clever. This is one piece, the wheel well for the actual wheel, and it's a very complicated shape. So I'm wondering if there's a bit of slide mould action going on with those. And then the main spar goes in. Right, Airfix tend to do this. Get you to mount the lower wing, and then the upper wings are separate, which is a little bit unusual. Most manufacturers would have you make up the wing assembly and then just attach the completed wings to the fuselage comme ça. So I might do that, or I might follow the instructions. I do not know. Don't know what I'm going to do. Separate ailerons, so you can pose them slightly if you wish, but bearing in mind you've got two control columns to think about if you're going to do that. But that would be quite an interesting feature, I think. As with Airfix, you have the option of doing it wheels up, which I really like. No stand provided, but Flory Models are doing 3D printed stands, and they're really, really nice. And a bit of a diagram there to help you to get the angles correct, but it looks pretty sturdy and pretty set on the angle front on there. Treaded tyres, which means there's going to be a seam to take care of. Moulding seam. Again, Airfix have done this before in the past as well. I've got a feeling, I'm wondering, I don't know, but I'm wondering if Paramjit has designed this, because I'm sure this is his idea. And there's the exhaust, and then they slot in. I'm going to get some resin exhaust for mine, because they're going to be hollow. Spinner enables you to spin the propeller, which is quite a nice touch. And here's all the canopies going on. So you've got your open option, your closed option. The closed option has the sort of sliding canopy in the rear portion moulded together, obviously separate here. This would be a little bit bigger. I would be tempted to replace this one with a vac form, because it would be much thinner and it just sits much nicer, the vac form. I did that on my Mark 14 conversion in 48th, and it makes the world of difference. Obviously no difference for the rear, so you could get away with not even gluing this one probably, and then you've got the option yourself. Two colour options. This is the one I'm going to go for. I really love this. It's the interior green. Now, it does say matte here, and I think a couple of them, well, some of them were glossy, some of them were matte. I'm going to do my matte. I probably won't do 161. I'll probably do a different one just because I like to be different. Just mask and spray those. And then the other one is from the 1969. This will be from the Battle of Britain film. And these were painted to be heavily weathered. So I reckon check your references and you could really go to town. Now, I have heard that they were not sky underneath. They were painted white or a very light blue, sort of the sky blue or sky blue, duck egg blue, whatever, because it showed up better on film. So I don't know if that's actual gouge, but I would just check your references because it might be that this is white. Cartograph, what's not to love? Relatively thin, not the thinnest, but relatively thin. But these are going to work superbly. I cannot see the carrier film around the roundels, for example. I'll just get it in the light. You know, where's the carrier film on that? That's brilliant. Obviously, you're going to get carrier film in the middle of the D and between the C and the D there. You're going to get that. But it's so close. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, with the Irish version, apologies, you get two options. So you can use the decal, or you can spray them, and if you spray them, you get these separate, which I think is a really nice touch. Here's your instrument decals. I'm so glad they've gone to realistic instrument decals rather than what they used to do in the past, which was have the white surrounds and white blobs, and it really looked horrible. But that is going to look spot on. So, excellent work. Okay, on with the plastic. So Sprue A, I really like that. Such a nice touch, isn't it? Right, let's go straight to the business end. So I'm just going to move the microphone out of the way. Right, first thing, you will notice that this is an Airfix 1/48 fighter kit that is festooned with rivets. Now, I have seen some online reviews, YouTube reviews, and the rivet detail, to my eye, looked pretty prominent. Maybe a tad overdone. I have to say, in real life, the camera does exaggerate it. So in real life, it looks much better. And actually, I think that's amazing. It could be slightly more refined to get closer to Edward, but Edward have been doing it for donkey's years and they are the masters. But for me, I think that's nice. Could sand it down a little bit, but I'm probably just going to go with it. And I really like that. I'm so glad they've done it. It saves me a few hours work of riveting it myself. And could I get it as nice as that? No, I could not. So I am a massive fan of riveted models, and I think Airfix have done a really good job. And bearing in mind, they're only going to get better as well. Cockpit sidewalls, deep, crisp detail. That is just lovely. Try and get the instrument panel in shot. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a bit more. Make my life easier. Beautiful instrument panel detail. Beautiful seat back detail. Sort of that padding looks like padding. Okay, there is the back seater's instrument panel, and look at all that detail on the back. Drill and wire for some cabling would look really nice there. Maybe if it's going to be on show, it might you know, might not be able to see it. I don't know. There's that seat mount. That is the control column, and that is really refined. So's that throttle quadrant. I have to say, this is just beautiful. There's even some, if I can get it in shot there, look at that, some wiring. Some more cockpit detail parts. This is the floor parts, what the rudder pedals are mounted on. Throttle quadrant on this sort of bar scrinson going on here. Just lovely. Right, let's flip it over. Let's have a look at the internal detail then. Again, crisp. It's going to take a wash really well. And on the other side, you've got your cockpit door going on. That's quite nice. Either way, if I do mine with the cockpit open, I'm probably going to leave that, actually. I'm going to probably leave the door closed. But easy enough to cut those open. Really impressive, actually. Love the look of that. Right, next one. I'm just grabbing it out of the box as I go. Here's the two blokes. Yep, they are blokes. Really nice, actually. I'm quite tempted to use them. Really nice. Backseater. Well, I say backseater, you could flip them round obviously and have the backseater flying. Wartime helmets though. So if you've had a flight in one of these Spitfires and you want to do you, bear in mind these guys have got the leather flying helmet on. Here's the jig. Port, starboard. That's a nice touch, isn't it? So you can't get the other way around. If you're going to do the canopies closed. I'm actually, even as I'm looking at all this detail, there you go, look, separate doors. So if you cut away the doors, you've got new ones to use. Just lovely. I'm actually in the process of changing my mind, I think. Right, let's have a look at more of that beautiful rivet detail. Come on, shave off. Look at that. Who'd have thought Airfix would be able to pull that off? That is just stunning. Now, there is an argument to say that the wing leading edge was puttied and sanded, so you wouldn't get any rivets over there, but I think it would look odd if it was all riveted apart from the bit in front of the main spar. But if you wanted to, you could fill that in. It's your choice. To the wall. So I'm just angling in the light just to show that detail off. And as I said, the camera tends to exaggerate the detail. It does look really nice in real life. Very crisp. Now I don't know if these bits here are a little bit of flash or whether they're supposed to be there. Training aeroplanes tend to have these strips here because what that does is as you get closer to the stall, this creates a bit of buffet over the elevators, so gives you that pre-stall warning. It's actually good in, for example, in the Hawk when you're doing BFM, because it means you can fly at best rate. Well, best radius really, I suppose, but you can fly on the buffet, so you know you're max performing the wing. So I'm going to have to do my research. I don't know if that is just a bit of flash or whether it's there by design, but it looks in exactly the same place either side. Some cockpit frameage, as I mentioned in the instructions, these are going to get drilled out just for a bit of extra refinement. But even that, you've got some raised rivet detail on there. Really fine and crisp. That's just lovely. I feel a bit sorry for this part. It all seems quite lonely, look. Maybe that's because it's a slide moulded bit. I'm just checking to see if there is a bit of a mould seam on it. It looks like there is something there. You're going to get that. Yeah, there is. Just a slight mould seam, but that will polish away really easily. Much easier to polish away a slight mould seam like that from the slide mould than it is to try and restore all this gubbins down the middle and make it look authentic as if it was part of the mould. Nice propeller. Here's that exhaust jobby going on. They are solid, as you can see. So you could drill them out. The round ones, the fishtail are going to be a little bit more awkward to do, but I've got some resin replacements coming along the way. There is quite a hefty sprue nib on the wheels. Now, everybody, wheels, the tread will wear overuse. Yeah, if you do sort of manage to be a bit overzealous or, you know, damage it somehow, just go round the radius and you'll have an authentic worn tyre, because that's exactly what happened. Two types of inserts. You've got the bigger 3-spoke, the smaller wartime 4-spoke. Crisp undercarriage legs, nice positive attachment points. As you can see, one-piece tail wheel. Could have been separate, but actually, if you're careful, that'll paint it really nice. There we are. Right, last sprue now. I'm heading straight for the surface detail. Look at that riveting. It's lovely. It really is lovely. Airfix are the masters of fabric control surfaces. Again, lovely. There's the ailerons. Riveted, because they were metal ailerons, obviously, by this stage. More riveting. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, let's have a look at the radiators. I think you'll agree they're really nice, and they're going to take a wash really well. Here's the other seat with that padding. That's really nice. Yeah. Just really, really impressive. Right, let's have a look at the clear parts then. What are they? Right, last bit, clear parts. Beautifully clear. No mould seam. Now there is a bit of a distortion on here, but then it is an injection molded bubble canopy. You are going to get that. So like I say, you may want to replace this one with a vac form. But beautifully clear. Quite thin, as you can see. Here's the rear windscreen. Good luck getting a vacuum form replacement for that if you were so inclined. I'm not. Beautifully clear, not free from distortion from the bubble canopy, but to be expected with injection molding. You're not gonna get distortion free bubble canopy like that in injection molding. You're just not. So that's really, really good. Really pleased. What I'm most pleased about is there isn't a seam to deal with down the top here. I've got something going on mine just there. Just something tiny. Maybe, I think that's probably a scratch. Take that out. That'd be easy enough. Right, there we are. that is the... Here we go. That is the... I'll zoom back out. That is the Airfix Spitfire TR.9. Bodes really, really well, doesn't it, for the single-seater? The 9E that's coming into Frastically. So let's go back over to the bench and have a chat. There we are. That is Airfix's 48 scale TR.9, the two-seater. I know some people have been flying in one. I'm going to go flying in one. My mate Scof from Flying Training, he was a test pilot, Harrier test pilot, flies all the kit down Shuttleworth, very experienced warbird and display pilot. So I want to go to his operation and he can take me flying, or maybe Parky, who was one of my instructors on the F3 OCU. That would be cool. Go and see him. Maybe even Charlie Brown, actually, who, yeah, I flew with Charlie. He taught me to be an instructor. Just 1 or 2 trips. Absolute genius, that bloke. Right, there we are. Enough waffle. Yeah, I really want to go flying in the real thing at some point. I am going to be building this as soon as the aftermarket bits and pieces clear customs and get to me. And I want to do the Irish version on the front because I can do a little bit of weathering and stuff like that. And what a cool project. Airfix are releasing a single-seater, a 9E. That will be really interesting. Looking forward to getting that. Yeah, I'm probably going to get that as well. They actually, Airfix, designed this first, and then they said, well, if we've put all this effort designing this, it's actually quite easy to do a single seat with all the research that they've already done and all the stuff they got. Obviously, they've got the 24 scale one, and they're going to be bringing out the single seater as well. And who doesn't love an Airfix Spitfire? So really exciting. Can't wait to get started. Come on, customs, do your thing, and then let me have my parcel, please, so I can get cracking. Really, really cool. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned on the channel. Plenty more reviews, build videos, chats coming, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.